Okay, everybody, let's get started. Let me thank everybody for being here today. Teachers and students at Spanish Fort, Daphne, and Farrell High Schools in the Eastern Shore of Baldwin County. Glad to be with all of you today. This technology is really amazing. It enables us to have real-time conversation. I'm in Washington, D.C., in the County House office building, which is directly across the street from the Capitol of the United States, and you're in your respective high schools, which is pretty amazing that we're able to do this. What I thought I might do before we get started with your questions is to kind of give you a little bit of an understanding about what it's like on a typical day for me here in Washington. I'm here usually Monday through Thursday of every week. Sometimes we're here on a Tuesday through Friday basis, and sometimes we have to go through weekends. But I'm here in Washington most of the time, Monday through Friday. And we have a day that begins sometimes as early as 7, sometimes more reasonably about 8 o'clock in the morning, and goes until somewhere between 8 and 10 o'clock at night. We have lots of things that happen during the day. We will have committee meetings. I'm on 3 different committees: the Education and Workforce Committee, the Natural Resources Committee, and the Armed Services Committee. So we have subcommittees of each of those committees. So there are committee and subcommittee meetings that we go to. I have lots of constituent meetings, people that come up from the district to see me. I just left a man named Chris Blankenship, who is the head of the Alabama Department of Conservation's Marine Fisheries Resource Division. We were here to talk about red snapper, so he and I had a good discussion about that. We just had the man that runs the Corps of Engineers office from Mobile, Colonel Kitka, who was here. So we have constituent meetings like that. Then we'll meet with people up here in Washington. They may be with a department or agency, or they may be somebody involved with the Association of Manufacturers. We have a big thing regarding healthcare right now. We've had a lot of the doctors groups up here to talk to us about specific issues. And then I have meetings, more informal type meetings, that I'll have with other members of Congress about various issues that we're working on together or that we're trying to work on together. So it tends to be a pretty full day. I don't really have much free time, if I have any free time at all. And as I say, it will go into the night because there are meetings and things that happen during the night that I have to attend. For example, tonight we may be voting on the floor as late as 7 o'clock in the evening. And that is something we do every day here. We do vote on the floor of the House of Representatives every day that we're here. So this afternoon, for example, the bills we're taking up are the bills, one of which will be selected to be the budget for the United States of America. So this is very serious business, and that business on the floor is obviously the end result of all the other things that we do when we actually vote on bills and they ultimately become law. So that's what my typical day is like. There is 1 week a month that we call District Work Week, where I am back in the district, and I do go around and talk to various people, industries, businesses, schools. I was at Foley High School a few weeks ago, and some of you from Farrell High School may have been with me at the intermediate school when we had a meeting there. So I do meet with students around the district when I'm there. But this is a great way for me to talk to you while I'm up here. And I'm ready to get started. And that's enough about me, so let's hear from you. And the first question I'd like to take is from Claire at Fairhope High School, who I think attended the function we had at the University of South Alabama a week or so ago. So Claire, ask your question. I can't hear you.
Federal government to be more involved in mental health due to recent increases in school shootings. However, we also closed a lot of the mental hospitals, but you've also elaborated that you don't think the federal government should be included in health care. Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question because some of these issues are not as clear-cut sometimes as they seem. I do think the federal government has gotten too far involved in health care in general, particularly with the Affordable Care Act, and so I have sponsored a bill that's passed the House that would repeal that law. Mental health is a healthcare issue, but it's a different healthcare issue. I see it as both a healthcare issue and an issue that is basically a public safety issue. Because if you look at virtually all of these mass shootings that have been in the news over the last several years, you'll find that in virtually every case, the shooter or shooters had a mental illness. And this is something that gets bound to the basic security and safety of the American people. So when you've got something that's both a health issue and a national and community safety issue, I do think that there's an appropriate role for government. There is a member of Congress from Pennsylvania who is himself a psychologist. He's come up with a series of revisions to existing law that would actually redirect a lot of what we've been doing to things that he thinks, and that I agree with him, that would have a more beneficial impact on dealing with the problem that we have in mental health. And so I've been supportive of that. Now, a lot of this does fall on state government, and the state of Alabama has made a lot of cutbacks that I disagree with regard to what the state should be doing in mental health. And this does need to be a partnership of the federal government, the state government, and the local government, as we make sure that we identify people who have these problems, make sure that they are put in an appropriate type of care, appropriate for them, but also appropriate to protect the rest of us, and that we have the resources in place to make sure that that works. So in general, I do think that the federal government should not be involved in health care, but this is one area that gets involved with our personal safety that I think government does need to be involved in. Okay, well, thank you, Claire. Let's go on. Our next question will be from Callie, who's from Spanish Fort High School. So, Callie, ask your question.
You're mute. You're mute.
Federal proposal to legalize medicinal marijuana.
Okay. I think I heard something about medical marijuana. Could you ask it again?
Will you support Senator Rand Paul's federal proposal to legalize medicinal marijuana?
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I heard you fine then. I do not support that. I've talked to a number of the physicians that are here in Congress, and they tell me that there is nothing that marijuana can offer for in a medicinal way that you can't get from other already existing drugs. For example, obviously marijuana can have an effect on your ability to feel pain, etc. We have plenty of other drugs that can give you that sort of pain protection and that are much safer. Obviously, they're controlled substances. You have to have a prescription, but those drugs are there. There's marijuana has also been proposed to use for people that have nausea, particularly if they are going through chemotherapy. And we have plenty of other medicines that are out there to help you with nausea. So I don't see that there is a need for medical marijuana because we already have existing medications out there that can provide all of the things that people are looking to marijuana to do. What bothers me about marijuana is that marijuana is a very addictive drug. It does make changes in the neurology of your brain, and it is a gateway drug to other drugs that are extremely dangerous. And I don't want to see marijuana legalized, whether it's going to be used for these medicinal purposes or not. Now, when I was your age coming through school, marijuana wasn't around, but it started coming around when I was in college. And so it's not like I didn't know things were out there when I was a student. But we didn't know then what we know now. What we know now causes me to have great concern about marijuana being available, whether it's for medicinal purposes or not. So I would be opposed to Senator Paul's proposal. Thank you, Callie. The next question will come from Daniel at Daphne High School. Daniel?
Okay, hold. Come up so that they can see you.
Right here.
Right here. Right here. Webcam.
In the recent debate on net neutrality, what are the facts according to your knowledge, and what is your stance on the recent FCC ruling regarding it?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. This is a very important issue. You know, we all take the internet for granted. We think it's just always going to be there. I can tell you when I was your age, no one even dreamed about the internet being there. And what a great boon it's been for people of all ages in countries all across the world. And the great thing about the internet is that it's so open. And that's one thing we in America particularly like open ways of communicating, open ways of being able to get information. And that's been so because the government has stayed out of it. And what bothers me about the FCC proposal is that we're now involving the government and the internet. And my experience with the government, particularly in this sort of thing, is that the government will now start to try to control it. And they'll try to control content, they'll try to control how you get your information, and they'll try to control what it costs you. Now, that's not what they're talking about doing right now, but we have this sort of slippery slope we get on. And I want the government to stay away from the internet. I want it to be used by private citizens, private firms, private everything, for us to continue to have the internet the way we've got it now. And I'm just very disappointed the SEC took the position that they've taken. And my prediction is that there will be a time in the not too distant future where all of you will be upset about something the SEC's done with regard to your personal use of the internet. And the time to stop that from happening is now. Unfortunately, they've taken this position, and I, for one, intend to support legislation that will get the FCC out of it, because I don't want them telling me or you how we get to use the internet. So that's my personal position. I don't think the problem that's being used as the pretext for the FCC to get involved is a real problem, nor do I think if it was a real problem it'd be sufficient for us to get the government involved in the internet. So I'm opposed to it, and until somebody shows me differently, I don't want the government to have anything involved with our internet. So thank you for that conversation. It's very important. Our next question will come from Michael at Spanish Fort High School.
Will you vote for the complete repeal of Obamacare?
I think the question was, do I support complete repeal of Obamacare? Is that your question?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Say
sir.
yes. I'm sorry. Well, I sponsored a bill that passed the House earlier this year that does, in fact, completely repeal Obamacare. And let me tell you why I did that. You know, healthcare is one of the most important things that all of us get involved with during the course of our lives. And it's an extremely private thing. It's something where when you go to see your physician, you go back into a private room, you close the door, and you have your private health care from your physician. And it's also something that here in America, we are known for throughout the world for having some of the best health care anywhere. There are very rich, very powerful people all over the world that will fly to the United States to get their health care because this is the best you can get. And we've taken that for granted. So what bothers me the most about the Affordable Care Act is that it, A, gets involved with that privacy that we have with our physicians about what sort of health care we need and how we're going to get it. But also I'm worried that it's going to interfere with that quality, that we will lose the quality that we've had for so long and taken for granted. What the Affordable Care Act really is federal government, people here in Washington, telling you what sort of health care you should get, when you should get it, how you should get it, who's going to give it to you. It's the federal government, just like we were talking about on net neutrality, it's the federal government getting involved in what is something that should be up to you. And I don't want the federal government involved in that decision. I want you and your family and your friends to make that decisions for yourselves with your healthcare provider in the privacy of your own room in the way that you need it, not the way that the people in Washington think you need it. They don't know better than you or your doctor what you need. Now, I don't think it's enough just to repeal the Affordable Care Act. I think we have to have an alternative. And here's the basic alternative that I want to see. I want to see the ability for you and every other healthcare consumer in America, and that's all of us, to be able to shop for the healthcare you need, including the health insurance you need, nationwide. So we would open it up and you can go get your health insurance from health insurers anywhere in America. Right now you're limited to only the health insurers that are admitted through the insurance department of your state. Well, I don't understand why we should have a limitation like that. We're not limited to people that sell cars in our state. We're not limited to people that sell bread in our state. Let's go out there and shop nationwide so that you can go online and look for the sort of health coverages that would be made available in a big nationwide market like that and pick the health care plan that works for you that's going to deliver health care that you need on the basis that you want to receive it and for the price that you want to pay for it, without the government getting involved in making choices for you, which will give you the freedom to make your own decisions. And then once you have the health care coverage in place, you go out and get the doctors and other health care providers you need to do what needs to be done. Now, there are a couple of elements of the Affordable Care Act, I think, that we could put in the new piece of legislation that would accomplish all of what I just said. I think we could still have a provision in there that says that if you're up to age 25, you can remain on your parents' health insurance. That was true for all of my children, and all of my children graduated from Farrell High School, by the way, so all of mine stayed on our policy even after they got out of college till they got their first job and got their first health insurance. We can keep that. And we should have a provision in there that protects the people that have pre-existing conditions, because we do have people who have very serious pre-existing conditions who need health care, and they shouldn't be denied the ability to get that because they're not able to get insurance because of pre-existing condition exclusions. So I think we can address those problems and still maintain the freedom out there for you to pick the health care you need. Now, what I think will also happen when we do all of that is when we empower you as a healthcare consumer with a wide open market. I think that the way every market works in America is that supply and demand decides these things. And supply and demand also means that we'll be able to get lower prices because the demand, you, the consumers, will go out there and shop for what makes sense for you, and that will have the effect, as every market does, of keeping prices from going up artificially. What we've seen over the last year or so since Obamacare has been in full implementation is that people's health care premiums have skyrocketed. And worse than that, people have bought health insurance plans under this new program that have extremely high deductibles. That's what you have to pay before the health insurance kicks in when you go to the hospital or a doctor. And there are people, and I've talked to people throughout the Eastern Shore, and people in the hospitals, I've talked to doctors, I've talked to citizens that are trying to access health care, and they found out that they can't afford to pay the deductibles that these new plans have put into place. I've heard of deductibles as high as $4,000 or $5,000. Well, how many people have $4,000 or $5,000 sitting in the bank that they can devote for one health care procedure? So I think we've made a mess of things with this law. I believe that we have the best healthcare system in the world. I want us to keep it, and I want us to empower healthcare consumers like you to make your own decisions. So that's why I sponsored the bill. I was glad to see that it passed the House, and it's pending in the Senate. So, Michael, thank you for that question. It's one of the most important issues facing America today. The next question is from Jack at Farrell High School. Jack?
Hello, yes. My question is, what educational path do you think a student like me, should take if I wanted to eventually run for some sort of legislative office?
Good question. A lot of people think you need to take political science or government, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I was a public policy major in college, for example. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the most important thing you can learn, this is a path you're going to go on, is basic communication skills. That means being able to read and read analytically and read a lot of stuff, because there's a lot of stuff to read here. So you've got to be able to read and absorb a lot of material. You've got to do it analytically. And then you've got to be able to turn around and communicate not only what you've read, but more importantly, what your position is on it, because your constituents or the people you're working with need to hear that. And you can do that by becoming an English major, for example, or another liberal arts major. So whatever major you choose, if this is what you want to do, I think it's important that you read and write a lot, and that you read analytically, and that you learn how to write both analytically, persuasively, and most of all, clearly. I think one of the greatest deficits that I see with people is that they really don't have those reading, writing, communication skills. So take something that's going to give you that background. I can tell you the amount of material that I have to read and absorb and understand day in and day out is dramatic. And I have people that work for me that help me with that. I don't do all that myself, but it's extremely important to be able to do that. And I think taking a major that gives you those skills. And the only way to do it is to do a lot of it. The only way to learn how to be a good analytical reader is to read a lot of stuff, a lot of heavy-duty stuff. And you develop those skills, you develop the ability to do it and to do it efficiently. And the only way to learn how to be a good writer is to write. And writing was one of the hardest things that I had to learn when I was your age and even in college. And the only way to get to be a good writer is to write a lot and have a teacher that comes after you and says, look, here's how you write that better, more clearly and more persuasively. So it's like anything else in life. It's how much time and effort you put into it. And if you do that and you come out and you've got those good skills, then you can go far in this field, legislative field, and in many other fields. So I don't just recommend it for this, I recommend it for a lot of others. And don't run for Congress until after I retire. Please do that for me, Jack. Okay, let's go to the next question, which is from Rachel at Daphne High School.
Okay. I am 10 days away from being 18 and a newly registered voter, and I was wondering what the most important issues or things that you would say we need to be concerned about regarding the upcoming presidential election.
Great question, and let me just make sure I say this. I say this all the time. If you're 18, you haven't registered to vote, go register. And when you become 18, make sure you register. The most important thing you do is go get registered right away. That way you won't forget it. And then you should become informed, as I think your question, Rachel, implies, about what the issues are. Now, if I was your age, and I was once your age a long time ago, the issues that I would be most concerned about are things that are going to be important to my future. You know, what's going to have the most impact on me and the other people in my age group. And let me highlight a couple of them. One of them is this whole question about what's the government doing to interfere with your life. I mean, what we have always been about in America is personal, individual freedom and liberty to do and think and become what you want to do and think and become. Our government's been getting very involved in the last several years in all sorts of aspects of your life. And I don't think that's a good thing. And I don't think your generation likes having people from faraway places tell you what you should do or how you should do them. So one thing you should be looking at is who's out there running for president talking about getting the government out of our lives from telling us what to do. Because it's getting worse and worse and worse, and if we don't do something about it, as you come of age and come into society, you'll find that the government's telling you all sorts of things that really should be your decision and not theirs. Another important one is, you know, we've been spending more money than we're taking in up here in Washington, and we're running up massive deficits. Now, a deficit is when you spend more money than you have coming in a given year. A few years ago, they were running yearly deficits that were $1 trillion a year. Now, we've lowered it by about half now, but there's still several $100 billion a year of deficits we're running every year, and that just adds to the debt. The debt right now is about $18 trillion. Now, that's my generation doing that. But guess what? We're getting ready to retire. And who's going to pay that debt back? You. So you should be very concerned about the fact that there are people who want to continue to add to that debt that you're going to have to repay. And I would be looking for people who have got a serious solution for how we're going to stop spending more than we're bringing in and how we start paying down that debt in a responsible way. And I think you should ask some very critical questions about that, because this impacts you and your generation far more than it's going to impact me and my generation. Another issue that I think is very important to you is what we're going to do about America's position throughout the world. We've become very accustomed to, we take for granted the fact that America is the power in the world. Now, you may think, well, we don't need to be involved in all of these other countries. Let's just come home, make sure we're taking care of things here at home. Whatever happens abroad is what happens abroad. The truth of the matter is, America has never been more interconnected with things around the world than we are today, and we're getting more so day by day. Just where we live, we have all these international companies that have come here. Austral, the shipbuilder in Mobile, which is our largest employer in our area, is an Australian company. Airbus is coming to Mobile. It's a European conglomerate. We have a number of steel-making companies that are all internationally owned, and I could go on and on. And what happens in other countries with those companies that are owned by people in those countries and have them here, or with moving goods and services and people from one country to the next, it has an enormous impact on the quality of your life. And America has been a real winner with all that. The fact that we've been the leader in the world has meant that you've had a better life, you've had a better quality of life. So we can access things here in America they can't access anywhere else in the world because that's who we are. Now, if we give that up, we'll lose that. We'll also lose the peace and the relative peace and stability that we've had in this world since the end of World War II, when America became the dominant power in the world. Right now, there are threats all over the world to the United States and to other people around the world with whom we want to be doing things, whether it's just exchanging culture and ideas, or just as importantly, if not more so, selling products or buying products. A lot of the things that you buy in the store come from other countries. And maintaining that stability and that peace in the world is to everybody's benefit in the world, but basically more of a benefit to us than anybody else. And there are a couple of things that go into that whole idea about being the strongest nation in the world. Obviously, national defense is at the very top. In the last several years, we have weakened ourselves. We've weakened ourselves to the point where we put the American people in peril. And you're seeing that with what's happening in the Middle East right now. And those people in the Middle East want to bring those same things here to America. They would love to come into one of our shopping malls and blow up a suicide vest. They would love to be able to fly more planes and buildings as they did on 9/11. And they're looking for ways to do that. The best way to stop them from doing that is to defeat them over there before they come over here. We also have a grave threat right now from Russia. We thought Russia had quit being the enemy of the United States that it had been for so long. And now they're starting to do it again. And we've got to have some way of standing up to that. China, which is a major trading partner of the United States, is both a friend but also a competitor. And they are spending massive amounts of money on improving their Navy and their missile system and their cyber program and their ability to take out our satellites. If you were to bring America to its feet, take out our satellites, none of your cell phones would work anymore. We wouldn't be able to operate all these things we operate through our GPS technology. All of these things go together with a national defense concern, but they also are connected to the economic strength that we need to have. And to be strong economically, you have to have an open society that allows people to move up to the top, that allow a Steve Jobs to be a college dropout and still create products that people all over the world want and that are developed by a company and sold by a company here in the United States. So being strong economically is a big part and it works with the idea that we're strong militarily. And it's also our culture. People all over the world may be complaining about the United States, but they all want our culture. They all want our music. They all want our clothes. They all want our ideas. And we've got to make sure that we're strong in all of that. And you should be looking for somebody running for president who can address in a serious way, a way that has a real practical ability to be successful, how we can maintain our strength around the world. We don't have to be involved in massive ground wars all over the world to accomplish that. But we need to be smart, and we need to be strong, and that's important to your future. So look for somebody, in whatever party you're interested in, and I would look at both parties if I were you and your age, and find the person that's saying and it's got the record and got the background to do those sorts of things, not for me and my generation, but for you and your generation and your future. So make sure you go out and get registered and vote for people that meet all that. All right. Next question, and this is related to the one we just had. This is from Allie from Spanish Fort High School. Allie?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for taking time out of the busy schedule to come and speak to the public schools here in Baldwin County. The question is, will you publicly support Senator Ted Cruz's announcement to abolish the Internal Revenue Service, replacing the current tax code with a flat tax?
I very strongly agree with Senator Cruz about that. I've been talking about a flat tax for a while. Right now we have this horrendously large and complicated tax code. In fact, the people that are the experts in that are people that go through college and law school, and then they go get a graduate degree in law and taxation. You get a LLM is what they call it in taxation. And you shouldn't have to have all those degrees to be able to figure out the tax laws in the United States of America. We have accountants, all great accountants all around the Eastern Shore who are right now preparing people's tax returns because people can't prepare their own tax returns because of the complexity that the federal government has put into our code. We need to wipe all that out by having a very simple flat tax where you don't have all those deductions, don't have all those credits, don't have all those provisions that you got to comply with. You just figure out what you made during the year. It may have a couple of basic deductions. Take the deductions of what you made. You take the flat tax percentage rate, multiply it across what your adjusted gross income is, and that's how much you pay in taxes. That's it. That'll also make ensuring compliance a lot easier. It'll take a lot of the inefficiencies that have been driven to our economic system by the complexities of our tax code. And at the end of the day, will mean we don't need an Internal Revenue Service because it's so simple we don't have to have all that. So I appreciate Senator Cruz and other people like him for putting this issue out there as a national basis. I've been talking about it around the district for some time now. I strongly support a flat tax, and I'm looking forward to the day when we adopt it and we don't have to have an Internal Revenue Service anymore. Okay, next question comes from Mackenzie at Fairhope High School.
You recently stated in a town hall in Mobile that my school attended that you support the drug testing of welfare recipients. Should a welfare recipient fail a drug test, how would the government deal with the dependents of the recipient? Will the government take the children, or will the dependents continue to live with their parent or guardian that now has no funds coming in?
Great question. We have a record amount of money being spent in America for people who are on food stamps, welfare, Medicaid, and the like. $750 billion will be spent this year on those programs. $750 billion. That's 50% more than we're going to spend this year on defending the United States of America. So in and of itself, that shows you we've got a problem. Now, when you will find, when you go out into the job market, whenever you do that, that in many jobs, you're going to be subjected to random drug testing. That is not unusual at all in our economy. And there's some very good reasons why employers do that, mainly making sure that they can keep the workplace safe, because you don't want people operating equipment and doing things when they're affected by drugs. So the people who are out there in the workplace working and paying the taxes that we use to get the money to pay for people to get food stamps or welfare or Medicaid, they're undergoing drug testing. And I don't see anything wrong with expecting the people who are receiving that money from the people who are working hard to expect them to do drug testing as well. And there's more than just that reason. Perhaps the reason people are on welfare or food stamps or Medicaid, and the reason they're not working and earning their own money, is because they got a drug problem. And let's find out if they have a drug problem, and instead of just giving them welfare and letting it go on and on and on, let's find a way to get them into some sort of a treatment program so they'll get off of drugs. They'll be able to pass a drug test and they get their own job, and then they don't need the government. So I don't view this as just being punitive to the people who were asking to take drug tests. I see it as a way of trying to help them with a problem that keeps them from being able to get a job. But it's also a real question of fairness. How is it fair to the hardworking taxpayers of America who have to be drug tested that they're giving money to people who themselves aren't drug tested? That's just not right. Now, you ask a good question. Will we take their dependents away from them? No, of course we wouldn't do that, unless there are provisions in state laws that if a parent's abusing or neglecting a child to the point where the child can be endangered, of course we would try to protect that child. But I don't think, absent a circumstance like that, you would take children away from somebody. If mom or dad have a drug problem, I think getting them off of drugs, getting them into drug treatment is a good thing for the children of that family, a necessary thing for the children of that family. So I see the drug testing is something that is fair to the taxpayers of America. It helps the person who's the beneficiary if in fact we find out that they've got a drug problem. It actually protects their family and it gets a better family environment for those children. So thank you for that question. Okay, the next question comes from Cole at Daphne High School.
Congressman Byrne, how do you propose we deal with the rising cost of college? Can President Obama's plan for free tuition at two-year colleges work, and who will actually end up paying for that?
Well, let's deal with your second question first. You know, I was the Chancellor of Post-Secondary Education for the state of Alabama, which meant I ran the two-year college system in the state. Faulkner State there in Baldwin County was one of our great two-year colleges. And so if there's anybody in Congress who is a strong supporter of two-year colleges, it's going to be me. I disagree with the President about this. Right now, 35% of all the two-year college students in America already get a scholarship from the federal government. It's called a Pell Grant. And Pell Grants in some instances, are not enough to pay the cost of a four-year college, but they're almost always enough to pay the cost of a two-year college. So Pell Grants are already there for people who, because of their economic means or their family income, can't afford to go to college. So I don't really think that's the problem. And I've talked to other people in the two-year college community, both in Alabama and around the nation, and they don't think that's the problem either. The main problem with people who come to two-year colleges, because we can almost always figure out a way to get a scholarship, is how we're going to deal with some other issues that they've got. Because a lot of people who go to two-year colleges aren't academically prepared. They may have some issues at home. They have sometimes problems like transportation. So those are the real issues that are facing two-year college students, not so much being able to find scholarship money to pay for tuition and fees. But the bigger problem, which is the first part of your question, is the overall cost of higher education in America. As I said earlier, I have 4 children. The last of my children, Colin, who's a graduate of Fairhope High School, will graduate from Tulane in May. I have been paying tuition for one or more of my children to go to college every year for the last 12 years. So I'm not just speaking as somebody in the government world, I'm speaking as a parent who's been writing the checks. And the inflation in higher education is unreal. It is far greater than the inflation we see in the general economy. It's even greater than the inflation we've seen in healthcare. It's some of the highest inflation we see anywhere. In fact, we've seen the impact of that on student debt, and student loan debt in America now is greater than credit card debt, which is hard to believe. Now, there's nothing wrong with borrowing money to go to school. I had to do it. I borrowed money, I had student loans, and spent the 10 years after I finished going to law school paying them back. And many, many, many people have done that over the years. There's nothing wrong with that. It's when it gets to the extent where it's beginning to impact on your ability to fully participate as an adult in the economic world or in the world beyond the economic world, because you don't have enough money to pay back your student loans, or you're devoting a disproportionate amount of your income to pay back your student loans. The problem there is not at the student loan level, nor is it with these scholarships. It's because we've allowed inflation and the actual money that's being charged by these colleges to get out of control. And I think what we need to do is go to the universities around America and say, what are you really doing here? Have your costs to you at the college gone up so much that you have to increase tuition? Or are you just doing this because you think you can get parents or students or the government to pay you the money? Because if it's the latter, then our colleges and universities have gone from being institutions of higher education to basically businesses that are just trying to maximize their revenue and not for the benefit of their students. This is a very serious debate that's going on in higher education circles right now. As a former member of that fraternity, somebody that ran a two-year higher education system, it's something I've been participating in. Now, I don't want to get the government directly involved in that, because as you've heard earlier in this conversation, I have real concerns about getting the federal government involved. But the truth of the matter is that we've got a problem in America, and our higher education community needs to do something about it. Now, consumers, you and your parents, and just like my children and I, we need to start being smarter consumers. And let's start asking some fundamental questions. What are we getting back for the money that we're paying for this higher education? Are we really getting the benefit back from all this money that we should be? And I think we should be asking that question to some of our premier private institutions that are so very expensive. We need to be asking it of the for-profit institutions that have gotten to be so popular recently. We should ask it of our state four-year colleges like the University of South Alabama, and we should ask it of our two-year colleges. And I think if both we in government, but just as importantly, if not more so, the consumers out there start asking hard questions, we can start getting some control over this incredible inflation in higher education. Let me say this. Having said everything I just said, the smartest money I have ever borrowed in my life were my student loans, because the benefit to me and to my family over the course of my career from having gotten higher education far outweighs what I had to pay back in student loans. So let's also remember there's a real benefit to all of us that are able to get a higher education, and many people in America can't get a higher education or don't get a higher education. So those of us who are privileged enough to have it, and it's about 27% of America has a four-year college degree, we should realize we've got a privilege. And people all over the world come to our universities because they're the best universities in the world. And maybe to some extent we need to sit down and count our blessings that we have the ability to do it at all, and then take advantage of that, and then understand after we've gotten out that we have an obligation to give back a little bit because of what society has given us and our ability to get a higher education. Okay, well, I think it's been a good chat. Y'all have asked some really hard questions, but that's good. I want you to keep asking hard questions of me and other people in public life. That's the most important thing you can do as a citizen, is to be engaged and ask hard questions. Be respectful, but as you have been today, but ask hard questions of the people we elect to a political office. I want to thank, once again, all of you for participating. I particularly want to thank your teachers. I'll say this to the teachers and any administrators who are there. If you want me to come and do something live at your school with your governmental classes, whatever, on one of my district work weeks, we'll try to work that out where I come by there. If we didn't get to a question that you have, please feel free to go on my website, which is byrne.house.gov, and send me your question, and we will get you a response as quickly as we can. We get about 800 to 1,000 direct communications a week in my office, and that's a lot. And so we can't always get it back to you as quickly as we'd like, but within a week or so, we try to get back to everybody. I also want you to know that my office is on Facebook. We have a lot of people that follow us on Facebook. So if you look under U.S. Representative Bradley Byrne, you will find my Facebook site. And by the way, Byrne is B-Y-R-N-E, not B-U-R-N. If you'll look on Twitter, you'll see me at Rep Byrne, R-E-P-B-Y-R-N-E. And I'm under Instagram under the name Rep. So you can find this on Instagram. Now, I really want to encourage you to go on my website and sign up for my weekly e-newsletter. We send out an e-newsletter every week that tells you what we did the week that has just passed, and then gives you a preview of what's happening ahead, and you can communicate with us through that email every week. And you can find that at our website, which is at byrne.house.gov. Please stay in touch with my office. You are the people I'm here to represent. I represent each and every one of you, and I want to hear from you. I can be a better representative for you if I hear more from you. So stay engaged as a citizen. That's very important. We talked about that earlier. And reach out to my office if I or my staff can do anything for you at any time. I appreciate each one of you. Do well in school. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.